Page 296, Chapter 7. Looks like Thoreau is on his way to Canada. I don't know where he's going. Until I read it, I don't know where he's going. At 7:40 a.m. Wednesday, September 25th, 1850, the two self-styled Knights of the Umbrella and the Bundle stepped from the Concord depot onto the northbound train. They must have drawn some looks, while the other excursionists were decked out in their finest clothes. Thoreau wore his oldest leather shoes, well greased to keep off the rain, and with a cheap brown linen duster over his second-best coat and a palm-leaf travel hat. It's a palm-leaf travel hat. The train reached... What?
Made out of palm leaves.
Okay. The train reached Burlington, Vermont. So he's going to Burlington, Vermont at 6 in the evening. It was too dark to see the great reaches of Lake Champlain. Have you been to Lake Champlain? Burlington? That's a nice place. But after a night's delay, they boarded a steamboat in time for dawn to reveal the long, narrow lake threaded between the two blue ranges of mountains. Steaming north on the Richelieu River, they crossed the invisible border into Canada, and Thoreau, for the first time in his life, was in a foreign country. His quick eye immediately picked up different houses and the pirogues on the shore, and in the strangeness of dual language signs on the frontier of St. John's, a.k.a. St. Jean-sur-Richelieu. After 3 hours of watching earnest and red-coated soldiers at their drills, the Canadians, driving past in dust-covered homespun, the excursionist rolled overland to La Prairie, where Thoreau and Channing pushed ahead to be first in line for the ferry crossing the St. Lawrence, a river 9 miles wide.
Wide?
9 miles wide at that point. What? It's wide, the St. Lawrence. When they're up by Lake Champlain, it's probably wide. Of course, it's quite wide, isn't it? Well, it's emptying out the Great Lakes. Across the river, Thoreau thought Montreal looked like a New York in the making. In early afternoon, they stepped onto the wharf, pushing through crowds, hurrying, "Welcome to the Yankees," to walk straight to Notre Dame, the heart of French Catholicism and the gateway to all that was new and strange. Thoreau, the Yankee Puritan, boggled at the cool silence of the cathedral, worth any 1,000 Protestant churches a sanctum, where the universe preaches to you and can be heard. Almost as grand and sacred as a Concord forest. Quote, "I am not sure, but this Catholic religion would be an admirable one if the priest were quite omitted." If you just take out the priest, it's nice. He quipped. That's quip, where you make a little statement. Quip. Have you made quips?
Mm-mm.
He quipped. Coming from him, it was a compliment. That's a compliment. What most moved Thoreau again and again was the French language. The very street names evoked a whole French Revolution. Should the omnipresent soldiers ever put their heads and hearts together for cooperation and harmony instead of war? At the market he stumbled through his rusty Harvard French to bargain for pears and apples, which he munched on the steamer's deck while watching the... Do you munch food still? Munch?
Yeah, you munch it.
I'm on at least.
Yeah.
While watching the last Yankees being ferried over in the dusk as they steam through the night down the St. Lawrence to Quebec. 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 To Quebec. 180 miles away. Have you been you should go to Quebec. It's a nice city. We'll go there someday. We can take.
I think they will. They must have been.
180 miles away. Thoreau pored over the map, sounding out the poetry of such place names as Pointe à Tremblay, for the aspen leaves that once trembled there. Quote, for there is all the poetry in the world in a name. It is a poem which the mass of men hear and read, and all the world reiterating the slender truth that aspens once grew there. Dawn found them nearing Quebec, imposing cliffs. The moment they stepped ashore, they headed as far away from the crowds as they could get. Up a narrow road, then up a set of stairs to the stone citadel at the top. Back in time to the Middle Ages of Sir Walter Raleigh, they wandered over the stone, admiring the view and picking flowers among the guns before setting off northeast with the immense St. Lawrence on their right. On their left, an uninhabited, largely unexplored wilderness stretched clear to Hudson's Bay. The miracle of it dazzled them utterly, and only 2 days before they had been in Concord. And here they were, only 2 days before. That's a fast trip for those days, don't you think? And here they were, rambling not to Flint's Pond or Sudbury Meadows, but, quote, taking a walk in Canada, in the Sauvagerie of Beauport, a foreign country that seemed, quote, almost as far off as England and France. Well, thought Thoreau, quote, here I am in a foreign country. Let me have my eyes about me and take it all in. He took in a long band of narrow farms that ran along the river bank with neat, whitewashed stone houses every few feet. A continuous village, one street wide. I took once a drive along the St. Lawrence River, with no front doors and no front yards where women worked in the fields alongside the men, digging potatoes or bundling grain. After sunset they reached Beauport, near the falls of Montmorenci, where the two Yankees asked for directions to the nearest tavern. To their shock, not one person could answer them in English. The very dogs barked in French, they fancied. So in broken schoolboy French they finally made out that here in this country there were no taverns, because there were no travelers. House after house turned them away for lack of a spare bed, until they found lodgings in the master of the sawmills at the falls, where, with the roar of the falls in the background, the Yankees talked in murdered French all evening to everyone's amusement before tucking in under homespun linen sheets. The next morning they found the mill owners' private grounds blocked the falls of Montmorenci from view. Natural wonders, grumbled Thoreau as he trespassed over the fences, should be kept sacred from the intrusions of private ownership. Of the falls themselves, 100 feet higher than Niagara. Whoa. He said little. I don't know these falls. The falls of Montmorenci, 100 feet higher than Niagara. How is that? He said little. Soon they were slogging through rain down a muddy clay road towards the falls of St. Anne. 22 miles further, and noting the humble houses, the people washing and cooking outdoors, the wooden crosses and shrines, and the ubiquitous red woolen caps and sashes, which Thoreau, chilled in his thin duster and straw hat, began to envy.
Envy what?
The red sashes.
What is a sachet?
I don't know. Everywhere they were greeted with the universal salutation, bonjour. Bonjour. We could go up there. I could murder French as easy as he could. My specialty is murdering French. Everywhere the great feature was the great river of Canada, which looked even 325 miles from the mouth as if it were opening into an ocean. Near the house they lodged at that night, near the house they lodged at that night stood a church whose walls were adored by crutches left behind by the miraculously cured. To Thoreau it looked as though the village carpenter turned them off new made. They breakfast on bread and butter, tea and maple syrup and pottage,
No coffee yet.
the local dish of boiled potatoes and meat. Then they spent their Sunday in the thoroughly Catholic country, self-consciously aware of being the only Protestants in sight. It's amazing the religious difference. The difference between New England and Canada is Catholicism and Protestantism.
I guess because bring the individual.
Because it's French versus English. At least in that section. At the Falls of St. Anne, 3-mile bushwhack. By guess and by compass, Thoreau made a grand scramble deep into the gorge, a most wild and rugged and stupendous chasm. This was the limit of their walk. The travelers retraced their steps. The country looked, Thoreau thought, quote, as old as Normandy itself, and realized much that I had heard of Europe and of the Middle Ages, including saintly names that made him, quote, dream of Provence and troubadours and feudal patterns of land tenure that challenged his sense of modernity, especially when he learned that a higher percentage of people could vote in Canada than in the United States. That night, they lodged at a farmhouse where they warmed themselves in the great kitchen and parlayed their murdered French to a merry family who swept clean the oiled tablecloth so they could chalk it over with local geography and French vocabulary, spreading it with local plants and produce, plums and seneals or hawthorns, and hard, glossy apples. Thoreau scribbling notes all the while, back in Quebec, eager to go. Yet another waterfall. They hired a Kalachi to take them 9 miles southwest to the falls of Calderi. But by then Thoreau was tired of waterfalls. But the rainbow they made so entranced him that they missed the ferry boat and had to stay the night at a pension, where their obligated host sewed a warm woolen lining into Thoreau's straw hat. We were reading about Thoreau's trip to Canada. Thoreau's trip to Canada.
So he enjoyed the rainbows.
He enjoyed the rainbows at the waterfalls. So he was on the St. Lawrence River.